Hello everybody, it is another week. It's been a hell of a week here in the MCOC community for Kabam, for everybody. Let's just we're going to get into this podcast. This is episode 104 of the Battle Realm and Beyond podcast. As always, each and every week, it's myself and Dan, a Frontline MCOC, who you can find in the links in the bios all the time, so make sure you go and follow. And follow Dan on Twitter, but also on his site, www.frontlinemcoc.home.blog. It makes it so much easier to hit that follow button on the bottom right, and also just making it a homepage so you can keep up to date with your Marvel Contest of Champions community information from around the Battle Realm. Dan, hello.
Hey, Rich. Hello. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling... I don't know. I went through all the motions. I think it's the same thing when you deal with kind of grief. Where's grief? I guess it's grief in some kind of way, where you kind of there's denial, there's acceptance. It is funny enough. It feels like EOP, Eternity of Pain, was like the preface for all of this, because you went through all the motions of denial, and then at the moment we've got to accept. Kabam are going to be making these changes.
Right, exactly, and it's definitely been a roller coaster of a week. I don't know if you're familiar with the show Yellowstone.
I'm not, but please explain.
Okay, in the U.S. and there's this cowboy meme where he walks out and he sees his wife is upset with him, and he just goes, "I don't have the energy for you today," and that was kind of how I felt. I don't know, was it Tuesday afternoon? It was very late in the day for you, but basically they made this announcement and the internet exploded. And I've just been pushing really, really hard at work. We are opening a new theater.
Oh wow!
Next Saturday. So as you can imagine, I am. We're really pushing right now.
Yeah.
So then when this dropped, I was just like, oh boy, I don't know if I can mentally check in for this one right at the moment, guys. I know I retweeted stuff and I was like, okay, let's see how this shakes out in the morning, because I don't know if I can ride this train right now. But so we're gonna get into all of that. Do you want to get into the fun stuff real quick?
Yeah, let's get
into the what's clearly going to be the main topic.
Yeah, let's do some as I refer to micro topics. So good. I actually think there's a couple bits of good news. One that dropped yesterday: summoner advancement improvements, and also the dealing with incursion bans. That whole situation with incursions was just silly. It was just stupid. I don't know why some people wanted to be carried through those rooms by obvious cheaters, because you'd be like, hang on a minute, this is not something I should be getting myself involved with. But people still did it, and it looks like Kabam are going to be taking action against them. And I hope this is the kind of line that they want to go with Battlegrounds and the cheaters that are in that eco space, as it has kind of sullied the mode for a little while. So I'm glad that they're going to be doing it. How's your incursions runs going when you're getting time to do it?
I mean, so far I've done a little bit of solo stuff. I've done one run of 5 with a buddy. I think we're saving up our items for Zone 6 or Sector 6, whatever it is, for the last week when we have the most items.
Yeah.
So I've already got the... I've completed all of the objectives that you need to get the Awakening Gem, the class one.
Yeah.
So I've already gotten that. So that was pretty easy. I would say it was a little annoying just remembering which tags to switch to.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I need a science. Okay, switch a science for a skill. Switch a skill for a mystic or whatever. So it was a little bit like you do 4 matches and he's like, okay, I got to switch someone out so I can get the next 4. That was a little annoying. But you can't really complain about the rewards, and I think overall the experience of the new hacks and the fights are super fun. So I've enjoyed that part of it, and it's kind of nice. Again, switching stuff up, doing some incursions, not having a separate side quest, which is so similar to the event quest.
Yeah.
To or any of the other side quests that we've done a million times. It's nice to shake it up a little bit. So I've enjoyed that.
For both of us, we've looked at these things and gone well, side quests are a bit stale-ish, and but mainly because we're both fans of Incursions. It's nice to kind of be thrusted into it. I guess this is the way Kabam want to go. They want to get us more involved with Relics. This is why some of those new hacks are benefiting from times where you have Relics kind of associated with your champion, which I get, and that's how Kabam want to kind of do it, to go, okay, well, look, we're making more areas where you can go and exclusively use these or have them get benefits, and I think that's how Kabam will kind of, I don't know if that should have been something from the very beginning they did, just to kind of make it seem a bit more, I don't know.
Right, because they underplayed it to such an extreme, because they were so worried about Relics taking over the game that everybody after the first month is like, what do these things do? So I do like that Relics are giving you an advantage in Incursions. It seems relatively harmless. It's not like we're talking about high-tier war or like Abyss of Legends or something like that. Like the place where stuff gets the wackiest. Even wackier. That's fine, right? So, I've definitely enjoyed some of those hacks, particularly with Spider-Ham. He is just crushing dudes in Incursions. So, I think that's another good thing, because if they do want Relic adoption, they do need to make Relics useful at some point.
True.
In some mode. So, I think that has been good, and that is addressing a criticism that's been lobbied against them.
Absolutely. The other good thing is Summon Advancement. I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of the things, but it does look really, really good. I'm surprised that there's some things that are not quite in the meta, and what Kabam thing is, I feel that Kabam Jax is kind of like getting and understanding more of the lore of Marvel Contest of Champions. Like when we went back in time, I don't know if there are some people that will remember this and won't remember this when it comes to Summon Advancement. The save or hoard 1 week, spend the next week.
You remember getting angry line messages because you opened a crystal?
Yes.
How could you do this? How could you be so selfish? Welcome to MCOC 2016.
Those were the days.
Those were the days, Rich. Those were the days.
And there's just so much triangulation to go. Right, we're definitely saving this week. Definitely saving. Not spending. Okay. And then it's like, all on, all open.
Open everything.
Open everything, and
then you'd get close. It'd be like, is anyone hoarding anything? It's like 6 hours left. Like, we gotta get there. We're so close.
I might just get a 5-star. I might just get a 5-star crystal I can open. I'm looking at the rewards right now. They do. It's good to see, first of all, that the peak milestones get more energy refills. There's a little bit of 6-star shards. The ISO. It's nice to see a good chunk of ISO there.
Yeah, ISO, some more gold, some of those AQ team revives. Like, this is definitely an area that needed a buff. I mean, those solo and event milestones, sometimes they can just hang around for years and get super outdated. So.
Yeah. And
good to see something there.
Yeah, I must admit, like, for me, it's not going to be too much of a... Or Summon Advancement wasn't even kind of like scratching any kind of like remote itch to go. I was just like, it's just like a fly, just bling, just off the shoulder kind of thing.
Right.
And now it's kind of like, I don't know, instead of it being a fly, it's kind of, I don't know, a small hamster. I'm like, get off, like a small mouse, get off my shoulder. It's the energy refill is gonna be nice, but now
nice,
but that does play into what you'd use that energy for, which is going to be something we're going to talk about. One thing as well out of this week is a 6-star Wolverine.
Right. I mean, talk about a good surprise out of nowhere.
Yeah.
A Wolverine Arena. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
people are going to be going hard for that one.
That's my concern, because I was thinking about, okay, well, I'll go out to grind a little bit of Wolverine, but then I'm thinking like, oh, it's featured. Okay, featured.
Right.
That's
top 100, Rich.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't know what the damage has done to people's interest, and will there be people going like, do you know what? I've had enough now, and those people that put up about, I don't know, 300 million points, are they gone? Are they still around? Will they be doing that? And that's going to be something that I'll be interested to see from round one, what the lay of the land is. But it's still really cool to see like a character like Wolverine, which has been a 6-star that people have talked about. Look, it's not Quake, it's not Magic, it's not I'm just looking at some of the other 6 stars that haven't been released. Those two.
It's really like those two are the main ones. At this point. And I know there's been a lot of talk about what champions should be released at higher star levels. I don't think we're ever seeing 6-star Quake. So
No, definitely not.
I don't. People say, oh well, once 7 stars come, we're gonna get 6-star Quake. I was like, I don't see it. No. Magic, I could see.
Yes.
At some point, but Quake, my bet is never. So maybe I'll be surprised. I mean, we did get Scarlet Witch.
That's true.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't see it with Quake. I'm sorry, Quake fans. I don't see it. I don't see any rationale where that happens.
No, I guess.
But yeah, the 6-star Wolverine thing is cool. I know you just put out a video on testing out 6-star Wolverine.
Yeah, a bit fun.
Because we did get him on the CCP beta, so that's cool.
Yeah, I did a rank 4 version with Horseman Synergy. And it's good, but I found, again, the same problem I had with Iceman. It's like, if you don't run Suicide Masteries, you're not able to get that kind of full peak of damage, which happens for a lot of them. It's just he's very much survivability, because those regen ticks, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head what they were. It was like ticking for a large chunk of time for about 1,400 with 2 regens on.
Yep.
I think it was that. I can't remember with it, but
and you can even boost that with a relic too.
You can boost that with a relic as well, and I did that without relic. So he could do a lot more with that one. I can't remember. Do we? Yeah. I should have done it with a. Damn, thinking like I should have done it with a relic in the video. Maybe I'll do that if I get time to do it. But I'm not. That's the problem with that. It slips my mind to go, hey, do this with a relic.
Because you feel like you got to get the video out fast. It's like boop is in your account, and then you're like, oh, I better do this now.
Yeah, and then it's like I completely forget we have relics in the game. And that slipped my mind.
Yeah.
I'm still not even a year into relics being in the game,
and not just like just relics, like a relic designed for Wolverine.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
I think now we can go on to our big topic, because I think it's going to be the full scheme of the podcast.
The meaty topic of the week that it's just a little inside baseball for you guys. Like Rich and I message during the week. It'll be like, all right, what's going on? Like, we got to put together some show notes. And some weeks it's a little dry, and we're like, are we even going to do a show? What are we going to talk about? What's going on? And then Rich just pings me with this multi-page, just scroll on the phone. I was like, I guess we're gonna be okay this week for content.
Yeah. This particular situation is so much of a dissection from Kabam and how they look at it, and versus how we perceive it. And this is the problem I think I've been talking about for a good 2-3 weeks, is the perception between how Kabam see their game versus how the player base see their game, and we're just not together on it, which is
right.
And I don't know if that ever happens with game. I can imagine it does happen with gaming. I'm just trying to think of any kind of previous examples I've been involved with. I think when I used to play a game called World of Tanks, there used to be a type of ammunition you'd have you'd fire from your tank. Mm-hmm. And it was referred to as gold ammo. And you basically pay a premium amount of silver, the currency, the kind of units, and you'd load that in, or gold, and you'd load that into your tank. You fire it off, but it was always a case it had higher penetration, higher damage rate, and as a result, it seemed like everybody was using it. Sure. And the developer made a decision to deal with it in a certain way. And I can't remember if they tried to nerf it and the player base revolted and they reverted it back, or they put some kind of compromise in place. That's the kind of way that I kind of looked at it. But it did more disadvantage to the developer than it did do for the player base. I think that's kind of a good example. But in any case, getting back to topic of MCOC. And Dan, this came out of nowhere, even for us in the CCP.
Yeah, I think we want to be clear about that. We found out about this when you guys did. There was no rumblings. We didn't see this one in advance. So we found out when you guys found out, and then everything just went crazy. Yeah, it was. We haven't had a day with where I saw that many forum messages or tweets or whatever in a long time.
Yeah, it kind of harps back to that 12.0 block proficiency. I think there's been several other times, like someone said to me, is this the most disliked forum post? And I tried to find some of the old ones where we've got a lot of dislikes or disagrees on one particular subject.
Yeah.
I can't find any, but I know there's been several where Kabam have done something.
I think like the initial one when they were restructuring how like alliance potions would work was probably very similar to that, where they announced that, and then there was just like this huge conversation about like, you've really undershot this.
Yeah.
Like how much we actually need. And it's like, people were bringing the math like, well, this is what the average person needs. Like, well, what about the people that do double the average fights? Because that's how this works in Alliance War at some levels. All those kind of conversations. It's like, oh, well, we're tuning it for the average player. And then they'll say that we're tuning it for the average player, but then you've got all these people that are, the people that are super farming for Abyss or EOP or something like that, or Karina's challenges. Well, that's not average by definition. So what's going on there? So, but yeah, like let's get into it. Like Rich, why do you think they felt like they needed to do this now?
I really don't know, and I think that's the mystery around this is the mystery. And
where did this come from? And this is one of those where like sometimes it feels like they issue these when the game is at a weak point. It's like if you're gonna do something controversial, like why when inputs have just issues have reared their ugly heads. It's like there wasn't positive momentum where it's like, okay, we can take the hit here.
Yeah,
like people were already in a state of unrest about inputs and incursions bugs and battlegrounds cheaters.
I just think maybe this was something that would have been best saved for like a December last year when we had stuff like the banquet event. And the pitch of that was kind of maybe a better idea to kind of go, okay, well, the game space is a bit positive to do it. And we'll come to like a point of like the why, like it's weird because sometimes I'm like, I get why Kabam are doing it, but then on the other hand of things, I just look at there's so many different contradictions in different places in game to Kabam's.
A lot of contradictions.
Yeah, it's kind of. I just sometimes what Kabam are doing. You're right. Going back to this, where was this motivated? How was this motivated?
Yeah, like what's coming in April or May that this had to happen?
Yeah.
And if there's really nothing, then that makes it even weirder.
Yeah, and this is something to do with. I know that Netmarble, from what I saw, like a few kind of threads, posts, and stuff. It's like Netmarble's biggest game is Marvel Contest of Champions, and like if you are
certainly their most stable game
and the most stable financially, so squeezing like if it's like squeezing if it was squeezing players and squeezing the pips, it's now trying to case of like if there's any shred of like juice off of the squeeze, like any minute droplet is literally being pipetted from the floor into there. So that's a great way of describing it, isn't it? So I kind of think like, is that something that they're doing is to encourage people to get spending a bit more in the game, which if that is the case, it's not where to go. They could come up with other ideas. It has Relics not been a big financial boom for them, that they're now like, okay, well, where do we go? Enough's enough. We had to tackle this back in 2018, 19, whatever, and go, now we've got to kind of like action this. This will be good for this. It's just so weird where it comes from, because like, why haven't other areas been tackled positively or negatively for the player base? I'm just trying to think of some examples. Well, it's like Realm of Legends potions, refarming full energy refills. Just trying to think of something else that kind of gains a lot of things. Yeah, there's probably some areas that I completely skipped off or can't kind of think at the moment. But it's like, well, why that? Why is that got to be?
I mean, I think you could make the argument that having the ability to farm revives in, basically random low-level content doesn't make sense for like a good player experience.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, okay, we're just gonna pop in and keep, we're gonna auto fight this content we've done a million times for this item, so we can go do some stuff we actually want to do. Maybe that's not that doesn't seem like a fun way to spend time. That's why I don't tend to do it. But I also don't tend to do it because I'm not pushing the content you need the revives for. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. You could also make the argument that like we say, well, everybody knows it's there.
Yeah.
Well, everybody who does anything with MCOC outside of the app knows that it's there. But there's a large portion of the player base that doesn't know that this resource has been there.
Yeah.
So you could make the argument that if it was simply like, hey, we're going to take it out of 3.2.6 or whatever, because it really shouldn't be there. That's not the point of it. And make it into the Apothecary where everyone can visibly see it in game, and that's the point of it. Like, that makes sense for a lot of players, both in terms of experience and for the 90% of people who don't engage with the community. They know, like, hey, there is a place in game where I go to get my health potions and my revives. That makes sense. From a messaging, from a gameplay experience. Yeah. Now, of course, the devil's in the details, because like, how much is in that Apothecary? And that seems to be a big part of the freak out, right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll kind of like we'll talk about the Apothecary, and then we'll come back to some of the other kind of things we talk about. But like, I think the from what I've seen and what I agree with, and that's another thing. Like I talked about, like, the squeeze and the juice, and it's like the squeeze on this particular mode with no autocomplete becomes something that we want. Time saving really is kind of the big thing with that mode, and they put that in. Like, if it's going to exist within the proving ground section, which I assume it will be under the daily quest section. Then that would make sense. Yeah, then you kind of go like, okay, well, Kabam and I'm going to throw this up on screen for anybody that's watching on the video, that you can go and press the auto button, and the auto button will get you through the likes of ISO Fields. They got it in Crystal Vault, and they've got it in Proving Grounds. So why was that not a thing that Kabam haven't thought about putting in for that one? And that would be nice to do, but it's like the extent that you get back. Now, if I saw like a DNA 3000 thread today, and I thought, have I got my sums wrong and stuff? But I was pretty certain, like, he was coming up with a certain number, and from what my sums were, that you get 5 guaranteed a week. And that's the thing, I don't want to go off of any random, because there's like a 1% or 5% chance of getting whatever it is. So that's no bueno to me. Like, I need to care about what I'm actually getting versus what I theoretically could get. Sure. You then do 22-hour events, so you'll do potentially 7 there, so you're coming up with about 13 revives a week. By the way, if I'm looking over that way to anybody watching this, I've got 4 monitors here, so it's like I got like CCTV, I've got a show notes, I've got the OBS running, I've got Dan here, so I just kind of like, you'll see me kind of go over, like, I'm not mad, I've not got OCD, it's just a case, well, I will have by the end of looking at these screens.
He's in the command center, guy.
I'm in the command center, mobile command center. Well, one of his mobile, anyway, whatever. It is technically a mobile game. So 13 revives a week is not good for those that want to tackle. And this is the thing about, we'll get to a point of Kabam slowing down your progression. We'll talk about that.
That's the big takeaway. Like, I don't think this is a monetization thing, because I don't think they really expect someone to be like, oh, wow, now I can't do this for free, so here's $50 for the next Karina's challenge. I think there's a very, very small portion of the player base that is willing to do that. This really feels to me like a big old speed bump. Like, you guys are just doing this too fast. Like, we can't put out the content fast enough if you guys can just farm revives this quickly to blow through this stuff. I think that is the big picture overall internal intent of this, is that they want to slow us all down. Now, it's gonna slow down the people at the top a little bit. It's gonna slow down the middle class a lot on something like this, and to the point where do you even do some of it?
I think that's the thing with Karina's challenge. The idea of Karina's challenges, the way that kind of feels like it's a slower. They want you to approach that in a slower manner to it.
Yes.
Also, I'm finding as well when people said recently to me, Act 8.2 is out in March, and I said, well, they're nowhere near ready to put it out in March. This is going to be more of an April thing. I think someone said to me, it's going to be in February, and I went, no, it's not going to be February.
Yeah.
And then when I look back at some of the ways that the content is dropping, it's like it's starting to slow down, and I don't know if this is. I don't know what the reason behind it is for the slowdown, and maybe this is because they want to. This is, smaller team. I know that we had some people laid off back in November, so is this a knock-on effect? I don't want to assume this stuff, but you look at all the eventualities. You look at as you pointed out, the content seems to be slowing down. They want to push things out in a slower manner. They want you to take your time more with it. I don't know if this is domino effect and cause and effect of stuff. I said I don't want to assume this. I don't know if that's actually the case, but you look at these things and go, well, is it 2 and 2 makes 4?
Yeah. Well, I think DNA 3000 brought up a really good point about like the revive and the availability and the effect on the players as we're talking about pushing through this content, because there's really two types of content, right? There's the permanent content that has no real restrictions on it. So let's say 8.2 is coming out, right? And we look at 8.2 and you're like, my roster's ready. I can do this with the natural flow of revives that are in the game to me.
Yeah.
And I look at it and say, I can't. I'm not ready. Well, I can just wait until my team gets stronger.
Yeah.
I can level up, or even, in the point of something like Act 6, out level what the content, like that was put out with rank 2 6 stars prevalent in the game. Like I could go back in with rank 4s now and blast through the back half of Act 6 with a higher level than is intended. I could do I could go through Abyss of Legends with a rank 5 6-star Sig 200 Aegon, when 3 years ago people were doing with a 5-star Aegon. We saw the same thing with Labyrinth, right? Like there were people doing that with 4-star Star-Lord back in the day, or God help them, a rank 4 Captain Marvel Classic.
Yeah.
And now you can do it in an hour with Aegon.
That's
right?
Funny enough.
That's out leveling it, right?
Yeah,
that's revives true. Go down. The champs get more powerful. The revive usage goes down. You have a choice there. Now, there's certain things like specifically Karina's challenges where you can never out level that because it's restricted. True. It is purely based on how good you are. Yeah. And if you want to be a completionist and you want to do that stuff, like 4-star Star-Lord isn't getting any stronger. So if you want to do those, or 3-star Loki or whatever, like it's get good or have the amount of revives to do it. Those are your two options.
Yeah. This is the thing about, again, perception of like how things have. With these the revive farming technique coming in. Obviously, Kabam didn't like that whatsoever, and
clearly,
I do concede the point that it does feel in some cases wrong, but when these things are put in the game and they're there, it's what the developer does about them, and it's so strange to note that they were oblivious for a length of time on this being an exploitable thing.
Right.
And then like, okay, 4 years on, we're gonna do something about this. It's a very bizarre situation.
Right. It's it's interesting. Is it kind of reminds me of the situation with Corvus Glaive and like Alliance Quest, where he was kind of the cheat code there, right? Because he would go immortal. Yeah. And, you would just pause the game and let it run out, and you could come back in at 1%, and it didn't matter because it was Corvus. And people were just pausing forever. And they're like, why are you doing this? And we're like, because it's the most effective way to get through this content.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like the players are reacting to what's given to us, and we're always going to say like, well, all right, well, what's my best option to do this? And if you're like, well, I'm not going to get through these challenges without a ton of revives. Oh, where is there a ton of revives? Let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
They did. That's what they did.
And that's a knock-on. A lot of these things have knock-on effects with the length of time you leave something in there, and also it's
again, we're talking about stuff for years. We're not talking about 1 month. We're like, oh, this champion was bugged for a month. We got to fix this. No, this is stuff that went on for years.
And this gives me concern about the whole Hercules side of things.
Hercules. The memes have been pretty good with Herc.
Yeah, they have been. Funnily,
there have been some good memes.
Funnily enough, the MCN I'm posting today on Friday there's been threads. There's also been memes about nerfing Hercules. And it's like, I take a lighthearted approach to that one. But then it's like, it's problematic from a point of view of Kabam, because Kabam put that champion in. Kabam John went on J-Ax's interviews, the Exit interviews, and said that there's that negative look on the champion because of his effectiveness, his ability to get through content. Right. And I think it was Kitty Pryde was also mentioned within that as well, about the idea of like, I think they would like to nerf the champion in some way. And that's just a lot of the times when I'm trying to do videos and content, I have a 6-star rank for 200 signature, I think, Hercules, but I try not to make him the forefront of that content or video coverage. Like even my incursion stuff, people are going, use Hercules. No, I'm not going to do that. Like
everyone's doing that.
Yeah, it's like, well, number one, if I do it singular about one particular champion, then we create a problem in the ecospace of usage because it tells Kabam on a data perspective. This game isn't called Marvel Contest of Hercules, it's called Marvel Contest of Champions.
Yeah, it's like when it was just, Ghost and Quake.
There was
a while where you would have thought there was only 2 champions in this game.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
One was called Ghost, and one was called Quake. And then Kabam gets themselves in a situation where it's like, okay, we have to make this unquakeable. So it's like True Strike and Armor Break everywhere.
Yeah.
And all the content is tuned so you can't beat it with Quake and Ghost. But that ends up hurting the rest of the roster so much more.
Yeah.
We've been here before. Like, we've seen this movie. It's like it was Ghost and Quake. Now it's Kitty and Hercules or whatever. Champions that can, in general, the running theme through all 4 of those champions is they have a great way to avoid damage, right?
Yeah,
and that's where the problem. Any of those champions that can either avoid damage or have some sort of like super extra level of survivability can become a real problem when released in the ecosystem.
Yeah. And that's just to think of like how players are trying to strategize their way around these particular instances. And like for myself, I'm not an MSD level of player. Yep. I try and enjoy this game for fun. This is my pastime game. Yes, I make YouTube content. It's not I'm like, okay, well, it's part of my job. It's not like my main job because I work for another company. Yep. And the same thing with yourself, covering the game as you do, doing the website, posting, this stuff is kind of like, it's meant to be your fun time, your escape.
This is fun. This is a hobby. This is supposed to be something that, we do in the free time, more free time is more of a job for you than it is for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is supposed to be the fun, relaxing thing.
So the element of being like, you have to play to a certain way. Like I said in the CCP chat, like as a joke, this was. Do you remember when the game was all about collecting champions and it was a small little fight mechanic to play in a game back in 2014? And I don't think I'll ever kind of retain any kind of. I could do some of the skilled things that MSD does, but not to a level like if he's at a 10 out of 10 when it comes to skill, I'm probably like a 5 out of 10. Maybe I'm just. I don't know. I'll back myself 6 out of 10. Why not? But like, here's the thing: the way that maybe I will need twice the amount of revives to get through certain content than him is like why, the Apothecary is not going to be, Rich, you can do it on day one.
Right.
No,
yeah, it's not going to make up that gap.
No. So I will feel like I will more than likely fall behind, depending on the extent. The difference is, and this is a problem that I knock-on effect, which I think Kabam know about, but I don't think they care too much about. Is like, okay, so if I can't get my revives from doing revive farming to the degree that I do with Act 3.2.6 or some of the other areas, and solo events and stuff like that, I will then go and shift my focus to Arena to get the units that I require to unit my way through.
I'm gonna farm something else to get
something else, which in some ways, and this we talked about briefly, the word contradiction, which is basically it's like, okay, well, we're not doing so we are still getting revives, we're just doing more Arena. So we're still going to do the same thing. It's just...
We're getting the units to get the revives, and you end up in the same place.
You end up in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I really needed, like, a big stash of units to push through something was when I was 100%ing Labyrinth in, 2018. And that was, like, you'd grind Arena until you got 5,000 units, and then you'd run a path, and you'd see where you were at the end. And then you go get back up to 5,000 units, and some of those paths, remember, like, that was like the threads, though. You're like, I did path 6 in only 2,500 units. Wow, yeah. I'm a winner. That was like the conversation back in the day. It wasn't so much about, like, oh, I've got 50 revives in the overflow time to do a path of Labyrinth. Like, it was different. But, we weren't as attuned to the cycle of, like, the Cyber Weekend, 4th of July stuff. It was still there, but it wasn't as big of a, like, hey, I better have 15,000 units for 4th of July or I'm screwed.
Yeah, because that's the other...
it is now.
That's the other problem with it. Like, I've definitely learned in the 1 year and 3 months, nearly 4 months, of being non-spending within Marvel Contest of Champions, it's been good to do this because you learn a lot about how you change your own personal approach to getting... Because before I go, okay, well, there's a tier 6 class catalyst offer. Well, I'll just buy 3 Odins and get that offer for 10k if I... And it's like, well, that's £300. Nowadays, if I said, oh, I'm spending £300, I'd be like, oh, God. I can't really. Oh, that's ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
I say that because I've got like a stack of things behind me where I've like I bought with money. But the thing is, like, this is different between me going, oh, hang on. Well, what I've done is, I think with a lot of the money I would theoretically spend in MCOC, I've bought a load of Pokemon cards which are there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I bought this where's this Marvel versus packs and stuff somewhere. Yeah, which is kind of like a collectible Marvel game. I bought some stocks in some companies which are doing well.
There you go, Rich.
But
invest for the long term.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But since doing that, and then it doesn't take away from like MCOC and like Kabam, because obviously, here's me contradicting.
Yeah.
Game developers need financial support. Of course
Absolutely.
they do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of reasons for me that I decided not to stop spending because I didn't feel comfortable with the way that the game was going in certain regards. And these, I'm not saying this proves the point. It's just a case of that communication factor that we're just not getting between Kabam and the player base as to... Look, I mean, that's another thing. Like, I don't expect a games developer to sit down and go, so, community, what do you want? What do you exactly want? And we'll give it to you. I'm not saying that, but there's kind of like a really cool balance between people having that level of communication. And in the CCP, we did have this conversation of kind of like, well, you could have like said something and kind of bounced ideas. And Kabam were quite hesitant on that one. So it's like everybody's not a winner. At the end of the day, the community.
Right. Yeah, I think everyone feels bad this week.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to be Jax or Mike this week.
No, I do feel for them.
And again, like, whoever made this decision is at a lot higher level than Mike or Jax.
Yeah.
But those are the two guys that really feel the pain on this one.
Yeah.
And
that's
are
true.
getting the ridiculously nasty messages and. That kind of stuff. So I always feel for those community guys, on on this one. So I don't know. This really feels like one of those like. And I know we like to joke about the Kabam overlords, but this one really feels like it came down from like on high, someone very removed from the players.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is. In the last year, we've had. I think it's a year now since we've had the change of. Is it CFO?
CEO, yeah.
COO. And I think another person has come in, and these are either former Netmarble people or Netmarble.
They moved someone over from like Netmarble corporate to run Kabam.
Yeah, and it's difficult. It's like I feel there may have been like a dossier of things that were like, okay, well, this is what we could do in order to do whatever. Part of me feels like this could be some sort of negative spin in order to kind of get, things churning with bad publicity is good publicity because then people are talking about it. But I don't know if that's always a good thing, especially when it comes to gaming. Because people are... Yeah, I'm not saying people are fickle, but people can just go... They can shut off from a game just like that.
Yeah, it's just... I just feel like something like this sort of gives credence to that conversation that Kabam will often throw the worst case scenario out there and then deal with the turmoil and then move things a little bit in the direction of the players. And I don't like to think that that's the business plan, but it's happened enough that you could convince me that it's a tactic that they're using, because I don't think they've said anything yet other than like we're looking at item caps. So I don't think we're gonna end up with exactly the status quo of today. With this, I think they're gonna come around to something, because that just seems to be the formula of this. But what would you like to see? Do you want to see an item cap reduction? Do you want to see item caps reductions? Item cap increased? Do you want to be able to store more things? Do you want something done with the overflow? I've seen 4-hour crystal rate boost talked about, apothecary buff. Like, what's going to make you feel better, Rich?
I think it's going to be, as I said, my level of skill is that I will need to have X amount of revives in guaranteed. And if it's going to be a longer time to achieve them, it's like the apothecary needs to be boosted on the guaranteed revive. So what kind of apothecary only gives 1 revive? Like on a day, that's kind of, or 2 if you look at the 22-hour event. I mean, that's 2 I can get a day. So it's over the case of a month. I'm gonna have to have. It'll take me a month to do a Karina's challenge lane, right? And that could be like 6 months to do what I'm at the moment. I'm doing over the case of. When did Karina's challenge go? When did EOP go in? Was it January?
I think so. Yeah. The latest, the
January,
final
February.
Permanent one. Yeah.
So I'll finish off that in 3 months. Now that feels to me that's fair for an end game piece of content.
Yep.
But now doing that will take 6 months to do. Now, I guess that's kind of fine, but kind of not. It just depends on where the game is with a chase meta reward. But I would say for me, I would love to see maybe about 3 or 4 revives guaranteed from that apothecary, and then an increase in my stash requirement, stash limits to about, so I can hold about, I'd say, well, Kabam not going to do it, but I'd love to say about 50. 50 would be good, because then anything that's in overflow would have a 2-week expiry, so I'd be able to get a further 14 to 28 within it. And maybe that's going to be a case that's the 1 month, 1 path of EOP. That would kind of like put it down to 6 months. But I guess it's the narrative that any saved time that I would have is to grab more units. I don't know if that works out for me, because then it's like I still think I'm completely not bamboozled, but still under a bit kind of like shock as to like, okay, well, how am I going to prepare the same way as I did before? And I'm just thinking like, the answer is go do more arena, which is not not great. I don't want to be doing more arena at the moment.
Right. You don't want to be doing more arena, and then like if you get to the point in content where you have to start using units, that is not a good mental place to be.
No, because then it takes away from what I'm chasing for meta rewards. And meta rewards are when you know, as a non-spending player, or anything is. I'm not saying like small spenders. If you just buy the sigil and you're like, okay, well, I got the sigil, that's fine, or the unit pack, you still have to get upwards of 18,000 units for July 4th, 21,000 to 20 something thousand units for Cyber Weekend to get
and
things.
Then you've got the gifting event or whatever
Gifting
it's going
event,
to be right on the heels of that, and you'll probably need 3,000-4,000 just to finish up that.
Yeah, and that's the surprising thing. If you want rank 5-6 stars and you're a non-spending player, having to get 3 tier 6 class catalysts to do a single rank up is massively overkill, and especially if the 8.2 and end of point chapter offers are not given that sufficient amount. You have to be reliant on either things like the Careers Challenge, or in order to, I'd say, get a chance of selecting July 4th deals, Cyber Weekend deals, and then the gifting event. That is where all your units need to be grabbed in. And that kind of like level of time that you have to then invest in Arena is twice, 3, maybe even 4 times as much as than what you're doing right now, which is scary. I mean, I thought to myself that, oh great, I've just used level 1 revives and doing EOP. I had 1,000 units left over. I was like, oh, this is great. So I don't have to like spend so much time in Arena. That particular positive thought that I had to go, okay, good. Well, I've got a platform now to start and put more units in, because I now have the sweet spot of using the revives and health potions that I've got from saving from solo events and other pieces of content like Realm of Legends, repeating that to get. I was like, now things have changed, and that means I'm going to lose a lot more of my time elsewhere, which I mean,
you're going to have to be a lot more strategic about the content you approach and how often you approach it. And some of it, just looking at the rewards, it's a cost benefit thing, and you're just like, wow, this isn't really viable. This doesn't make sense from a resource allocation standpoint, which is kind of sad. For like, you don't really want content in the game like that. You just look at it and be like, this is so outdated that there's no, it's, you can't even argue that you're doing it for fun because you're going to spend a whole bunch of resources. Like, you could say, like, in 2023, the Labyrinth rewards don't make sense.
Yeah.
Or, they're not meta. They're not meta, right? But if you blast through with an Aegon in like an hour and a half, and you're having fun, and you add Labtron to your collection and you didn't have him before, like, there's at least a fun argument there.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to do this and it didn't feel bad. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, but some of this stuff, particularly the Karina's challenges, like, okay, like, what is the point to this now? Like, does this need to change? Does this need to be buffed? How do we address this? And I think the other part of it is we've seen this many times in the game, where if you're an early mover, you can do something under one system and there's a huge benefit, and then it changes. So it's like, let's say, you're an end game player and you're like, all right, we're going to get through all these EOPs. I can farm Act 3 for revives under this system. And that's going away in a couple weeks. And then you look at an up-and-coming player who is like, all right, I'm at the point where I'm about to get through Act 8. I'm going to move on to Eternity of Pain. Oh, wait, I can't play the game under the same system that everyone ahead of me played it at to get these meta rewards. What am I going to do?
Yeah, and that's the thing that the sweet spot Kabam need to find as to, like, are they going to deter early players to the game and end game players to the game? The early players being that if the skill gap and what is, like Kabam was saying, is like, get good kids or use units to get through this, then that's not real. And, early players may have gone through 3.2.6 and other areas and got revives. or kind of like have not had that restriction or kind of feel pressured, I think is the word,
Sure.
then that's fine if they've kind of like still can continue to play the game. The second side of things is the way that let's say endgame players like myself kind of like look at this situation and go, okay, well, I'm looking at like, right, well, I'm just not, I need to kind of like up my skill level to achieve this, choose the right champions, not make bad decisions, and I definitely need to kind of like, I don't like that, because again, this boils down to me having my fun with the game,
Right,
and not kind of having that pressure to go, oh yeah, just get good, or finding strategy around it. Which yes, I've been trying to find strategy around it at the moment, but then I'll just have to go, well, I'll just use units then.
Yeah.
And again, but then that points to like the same kind of bad scenarios going. Well, first of all, it's like, oh, if I can't get through this content because I'm not playing, like MSD level, I'll just go and get revised from 3.2.6. That's not available. Well, I'll just use units from going to Grind Arena. It's like, but I invest more time into the game. Is that what Kabam wants? Is more investment of time within the game? So I don't know. It's like that's why I feel the shift is there.
Yeah. I do worry about how people are going to address like the really, really hard content if they don't make a change. Like if when we talk about like, well, how's this going to change for me? Like the next big piece of content I'm looking at is Act 8.2.
Yeah.
That is a piece of content where if I can do one map every 2 weeks, that's a good pace for me. But just because I can only do that content on the weekend. Like I need some time, sit down when I'm not interrupted. Not getting asked questions, and the kid doesn't want to play Switch. Where I can sit down for like a half hour and concentrate on a lane and feel like I'm plugged in. And I can do that maybe 2-3 times a weekend if we're assuming 6 paths on a map. And if I can complete one of those every 2 weeks, I'm feeling good about myself. Now, I'm still playing the game. During the other times, I'm still getting revives from the calendars and the crystals, and maybe I auto fight the apothecary a couple times. Like, I'm not gonna get out over my skis on revives.
Yeah,
trying to do that content at that pace. Now, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I don't want to take 8 weeks. To complete 8.2. I want to go fast. I want to go now. And some of them probably don't need the revives, but a lot of them do. And then it's they're not going to be able to farm them.
Yeah.
And at current inventory caps, it's not like you can say like, "Hey, I'm gonna dedicate 2 months to preparing for this."
Yeah.
Which seems kind of fair, right? Like that's a big sacrifice. If you're like, "All right, well, I'm gonna grind over 2 months and store these suckers up to be ready to go." Like that's a strategic choice on the player's part. Like I don't know, it kind of feels like you should be able to do that. So yeah, I don't know how you address it, and then it's the things like the Karina's challenges where it's like, all right, with the sigil you can store 19. Like this is not going to be enough. Like, what do you do in those cases where it's like it's really you're spending 30 or 40 maybe. That's what gets tough for me. It's like how do you approach that kind of content and stock up in a way that makes sense for the player?
Yeah, and a lot of this is just down to like difficulty curve. Like and this is the thing that I kind of like I've talked about a good chunk this week is if Kabam are looking at the stats, and we had the stats there, the length of the extent of revives that are being farmed, but we don't hear about the stats of the revives being used and what and that's the way that I think Kabam haven't really looked at it. They should be bringing up more kind of a case like, hey, we've made something very difficult because people are using the revive. I know that people might want to be quite proud on the subject of how many revives that they've used or not used on particular content, but the question that needs to come up is, Kabam, what are the stats of the amount of revives being used on certain champions difficult content? Because that should give you an indication as to how you're pitching and making content for the reason that people are going, right, we've got to use it. And Kabam doesn't need to look at this like get good, play better, right? That's not really that's not really the way of kind of looking at it. Instead, what they've done is with this particular reaction is to go, well, people are getting too many revives, and that's the problem. And that's
right. It's sort of the it's sort of the brute force with Hercules, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what's been talked about. But again, players always gravitate towards what they think is the most efficient means of clearing the content. They're not doing that for no reason, right?
Yeah.
Like people decided on that strategy because they're like, well, I got to get through this. This is the best way to handle it with the tools I have. I have a place I can farm revives, and I've got this champion that goes immortal. What do you expect me to do?
Yeah, exactly. And that becomes the sad shift. And the Koreans challenges have been good because it's been, yes, okay, you might use Hercules if you've got him to do the first 4 fights. It's not definite you have to use him. You can use other champions that are available. But a lot of people are then choice shifting out from that. So it's good and bad with having that as an option. I think that's a fair option because then it's saying, yes, you can clear EOP with Hercules if you so wish, but why would you want to repeat that if you have to do a Karina's challenge, which has specific champions which are not Hercules, which is great. Thumbs up for that. So, this is...
It's just a question again, like, all right, we're trying to hurt Hercules, but do we end up hurting other champions more? Like, what's the impact when you take away the extra revives? Like, it's not... That affects everything, so...
Yeah, and then there's other areas of the game like Labyrinth for Legends, and if you've got a Queen's Challenge for Labyrinth for Legends and you're using, as you pointed out, about like a 4-star, then it's like, well, you're going to take a 4-star
What else are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? Like, and currently because...
You've got a damage cap, you've got Labyrinth Evade... You're on a clock there. You know you're going to die at some point from the rage.
I've just been told that somebody that was meant to be here a little bit later has arrived, Dan.
Okay.
We'll have to wrap up.
That's good.
I think we've covered.
We've covered it. We've been going for about an hour, and I gotta get ready for work anyway. But Rich, what are you up to this week?
Trying to do that last EOP Karina's challenge, farming.
Nice.
And then it's all over. It's all over, Dan. And then I'll have to think about how this apothecary thing is going to take shape, and then do incursions. What are you up to?
Yeah, I think same thing. Do some incursions. Got to get my battlegrounds milestones.
Yes, got to do that.
And just continuing to farm that gold so I can rank up my champs and pay for my Alliance Quest tickets.
Absolutely, that's the way to go with it. A pleasure. It's been a great show. So
pleasure as always, sir.
I hope you enjoyed, everybody, and good luck out there. And keep strong, keep positive wherever you can, and we'll try and find out if there's going to be an answer. Next week's show may be about whatever that answer will be about the apothecary. Hopefully it's better.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.